Hey, what's going on, guys? It is Zach with the Firefly Remedy, and I had this idea the other day just to start like a little mini series, one that I can come back to every so often and just kind of tell stories about my life that I deem to be interesting just in commentary form, because I never really get to do commentaries anymore, and I always like just sitting down from time to time and doing them. So no webcam today because I just feel like it would be weird to do it for this. But I don't think my life is that interesting, but this is definitely a story that I've told pretty much all of my close friends this story. I'm not like scarred from it. I think it's actually kind of funny looking back. But this is the story about how my family joined a cult. Where to begin? Okay, well, I grew up in a conservative household. Nothing crazy, nothing radical, just moderate conservative household. We were Catholics for the first few years of my life, but then my parents, for whatever reason, made the transition to a Christian church. And obviously throughout the story, I'm going to leave out names. I'm going to change up names of places and people just to protect identities, despite how I may feel about them on the inside. We went to this Christian church for a while, from my early toddler years, like my late toddler years, all the way through my late teen years. And there was a falling out. My parents didn't get along with the leaders there, and there was corruption, so we left. To make a long story, we left, and we found another like-minded Christian church, but one that didn't seem to be corrupt. We were only there for a few weeks, and unfortunately the pastor ended up killing himself, which is really sad. I really don't know what was going on. It just kind of happened one day. And there was a woman there. We'll call her Olga. No, we'll call her Helga, because this is the woman that brought us in to her house church. She said, "I've been hosting one for the past few months, and we'd love for your family to come." I'm going to call her Helga because it seems like a name of a witch, and that's how I always viewed her. She looked like one. She dressed like one. She wore all black, and she always had her hair up in this giant bun, but it looked like it hadn't been washed in years. It was greasy, and it was just dirty. I always make jokes to my brother and sisters that she nested like birds in there, and we never saw her driving a car, so I just figured she always came in on a broomstick, stuff like that. She was just a very odd human being. You know, it wasn't until like a few weeks in that I realized something was really wrong. I like to think I'm one of those people that can tell a lot about people from the get-go. Like, I just get like bad vibes, as cringy as that sounds. I get bad vibes. And there was just something off about this woman from the get-go, and I felt like I was the only one that saw this. So things are okay. You know, they're just preaching. It's like the small house church. She has this giant, when I say giant, I mean massive house. It could have been like Count Dracula's castle, just like in the suburbs. The house, price-wise, was closer to $1 million than it was to $0. I don't know exactly how expensive it was, but she bought this house for the sole purpose of, as she called it, bringing in the children. Yes, you heard that right. As one of the children, I guess you could call it, of this church, one of my duties was to bring in other children from this neighborhood and all around and recruit them, I guess. I don't know what they wanted to do, but later on, I guess you'll probably get some ideas. And, you know, it was one of these experiences that progressively got more and more extreme the deeper you got. So for the first few weeks and months, you know, I'm just catching bad vibes, but, you know, there's a couple red flags here and there, but I'm just letting it slide, because I'm just like, she's just an oddball, right? She's preaching the gospel. You know, I grew up on this stuff, right? One of the big red flags that I noticed pretty quickly was how realistic, and this is not a way to hate on religion. This video, I don't care what your religion is, so long as you're not killing and maiming people in the name of your God. Just don't, like, hate people and be an asshole. She and these two other women, I guess they were like her little henchmen. I'll call them her grunts. They did the grunt work. Their names were, we'll call them Oog and Gloog. They were not very nice people. They were quite judgmental, and they weren't nice to be around, right? They made us all very uncomfortable. And after every service, so basically every service would go like this. we'd be sitting around this dirty, just like, it was so stuffy in this living room because she had like all this super old furniture that I'm pretty sure she never washed anything. And you know, she probably picked and chose something out of the Bible that said she couldn't wash anything. I remember she didn't want people to shave, you know, like stuff like that, because apparently something in the Bible said like you weren't allowed to shave. It was just really freaking strange, all right?
She also claimed that she could see angels, and whenever she'd be like preaching, every once in a while she would just stop what she was doing, and it was actually kind of creepy, and she'd like stare off into the distance, and she'd be like, "Oh, there's another one," and everybody would just be like, "Oh, are you serious? Oh my god." But yeah, after a while, like, I started to think about it, and I'm like, this is actually really scary. Like, I don't want to see angels or anything just waltzing around my house or anything like that.
Services would go something like, we'd be sitting around, they'd talk and talk, and they wouldn't shut up. Like, I mean, they would talk just about how they were going to build this church for 2, like, hours. And then eventually, there'd be a pause. And then Helga would look around with this really creepy smirk on her face, and she would go, "Is it time?" And it would be dead silent. Then she'd pop on that stereo, and we'd jam to gospel music for the next half hour. It was very uncomfortable. It was not like listening to gospel music in an actual church. And then after that, she would go into her sermons. Her sermons got progressively more and more creepy as the times went on. After service, there would be all these snacks and food, and they weren't just like normal snacks. They weren't like, it wasn't like a salad and, you know, cookies and, you know, just like normal stuff. It was like this big jug of water that she put like all this fruit into, and you would think it would taste pretty good, but she would just like let it sit, and it just did not taste right. It was really gross, and there was like all these other strange foods, right? But I'll never forget this was the first thing she said to me that I was just like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm in early high school now, so the first Hunger Games is about to come out, and we're talking about the trailer for it, and she comes up next to me, and she goes, in like a really creepy way, she whispers in my ear, "So, do you think it could happen?" I'm like, "What?" "The Hunger Games. Do you think it could happen?" And I wanted to die inside, like, of laughter. This woman is dead serious. And then she went on to talk about how she believed the Hunger Games could happen and how it's going to happen. That was like the first thing that I was just like, what are you talking about? I don't want to say my parents lost it, but and especially out of respect for them, they're completely back to normal now, but for a couple months, Helga and Oog and Gloog really had my parents messed up. So there was a period, if you look on my channel, I wasn't uploading during these years. I wasn't playing video games during these years. I wasn't allowed to. And if I did, I had to do it in hiding. I had to go to a friend's house, or I had to like lock myself in a room or something like that. We weren't allowed to watch Harry Potter. We weren't allowed to celebrate Christmas because Santa is pagan. Stuff like that. Christmas is a pagan holiday. Just stuff, it was insane. Eventually, some months later, this was towards the end, and I think the part that really made my parents realize, okay, yeah, we need to get out. We were having our typical sermon, and Oog and Gloog, I don't know if I mentioned, they're like sisters. And Oog had a daughter that she adopted named, I liked her actually, and I felt bad for her daughter, so we'll give her a pleasurable name. We'll call her Sarah. Helga goes on to talk about we get into the discussion of Revelation and the end of the world and what's going to happen. And she goes on about how we need to start collecting the children, build up our church, and move to Jordan, the country. Because apparently, in Jordan, there are these pink caves. And that is supposedly where Jesus was buried after he was hanged on the cross. I don't know how legitimate these claims were, but the possibility that I'd have to move to Jordan didn't sit too well with me. And then, in the same sermon, because that bit wasn't enough, she began to talk about martyrs and how if God were to call on you, the parents, to kill your children, you would need to do it. And Oog looks down at her adopted daughter, Sarah, and says, I'm sorry, Sarah, but if God told me, I would have to kill you. I swear to God, those were the actual words. This was not paraphrased. This was not dramatized. She actually said that. I never went back. That was the last day I ever went back. And it took a while, like a couple more weeks before my parents, like, you know, they kind of fizzled out of that place. But I remember every Sunday, my dad would come into my room and he'd be like, all right, it's time to go. We're going to Helga's. We're going to see the gang. I refused. It was a war zone on Sunday mornings. I just absolutely refused to go. So as punishment, I couldn't play Xbox. I couldn't do anything. And yeah, that was my life for a little bit. I don't have any ill will towards my parents because they were just doing their best and they got manipulated by these crazed folk. It was scary. I only brought up like a handful of people that were at this group, but it was like a sizable group. There were probably about 10, 15 people there. No, probably about 15 to 20 people there at times. And a lot of those people, as you may imagine, came and went, just like my family, because they realized this place was crazy. Those were some of the more insane stories, and I don't want to go on too much. I eventually graduated from high school and went to college, and sometime in my freshman year, that was when my family officially stopped going and they became normal again. I never actually found out why they left until later on, when probably around my senior year at university. Oog and Gloog, when I told you they were judgmental, horrid people, at least Helga was like pleasant. She was just a psychopath. Like, she was crazy. Oog and Gloog were actually very mean. My sister, she got a tattoo. They basically conspired against her. They went to Helga and they told her that she was demonic. They told my mom that she can no longer go there because she does not belong in the house of God. I guess that was the last pressing moment and we got the F out of there. Everyone was finally free in my family. Funny story though, last summer, my sister, me, and my brother, we took a drive out to the house to see if they were still holding their sermons. And lo and behold, the cars were all still there. So even after all of this time, God knows what they are doing in there. I don't even want to know what they have come to, especially in today's day and age. Things have gotten far crazier in the last few years, that's for sure. They've probably completely lost it. Not that they hadn't before, but that is the story of how my family ended up at a cult. If you enjoyed, please be sure to give the video a like. I'd really appreciate it. Maybe I'll do more of these in the future. And also hit that subscribe button for more content. More videos coming soon. And I guess I will catch you all in the next one. Goodbye.